And we're back for another episode of Standpoint. I'm Gabe Groisman, and if you notice something different here, not only do I have this handsome congressman next to me, Mike Lawler, but we are here actually at the JNS studio. I wouldn't know if it's a studio, but set up here at the RJC, the Republican Jewish Coalition's convention in Vegas. So Congressman Lawler, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I know it's hard to pull you away from the speech after speech after speech that everybody loves here at the RJC, but thanks for taking the time.
No, absolutely. I look forward to the conversation.
So Mike, freshman congressman who has made a huge splash. You were super effective as a state legislator in New York. But before kind of getting into your race, which I want to talk about, you got a tough race. It was a redistricting. I want to understand that. I'm sure listeners really enjoy politics, want to understand the gamesmanship that the Democratic Party played to try to take the seat back. But also some of the accomplishments you've had this year, which are tremendous for any member of Congress, but especially for a young one. But help us understand, we were speaking last night a little bit, your district, where your district is. Mm-hmm. It's a Republican in New York, in the state of New York. There's not so many of you. So tell me about your district and how you won it.
Up until 2022, it was considered to be an endangered species. So we're making progress here. My district is just north of New York City. It includes all of Rockland County, where I'm born and raised, raised my family. As well as northern Westchester, so think Chappaqua, where the Clintons are, or Bedford, where George Soros is. All of Putnam County.
You're talking about big Republican names.
Huge Republicans. All of Putnam County, 3 towns in Dutchess County. So it runs from the New Jersey to Connecticut border and up the Hudson River.
And it sways blue, right? I mean, the registration is Democrat plus how many?
There's 80,000 more Democrats than Republicans. This is a district Joe Biden won by 10 points in 2020. It's, a D+3 on the Cook PVI rating. So obviously it's a very heavily Democratic district. I'm the first Republican in parts of this district to represent it in over 20 years. So it's, obviously it's a competitive seat. It's a seat the Democrats want to take back. I defeated the chair of the DCCC, Sean Patrick Maloney, in 2022, which was one of the deciding factors in Republicans regaining control of the House and ending Nancy Pelosi's reign as Speaker. And so Democrats now are focused on New York and California as the avenue to get back to the majority, including my district. And so this is a seat where millions of dollars are pouring in already and are going to continue to pour in through Election Day for the Democrats to try and win back the seat.
But tell me a little bit about the district itself. I mean, I live in Florida, like, in Miami, but I do travel the country a lot. And there has been a shift in the way people look at politics and at the parties, especially, not everywhere, and definitely not in the heart of Manhattan, but all over the country you see it. Do you think that played a part in a Republican winning, or was it more when you won that, or was it more your history that you had? You were a known quantity because you were in the state legislature.
So it's a combination of factors. Number one, the district is in many respects reflective of the country. It's a truly suburban district, but 19% of the district is Latino, the fastest growing population in the country. I have the second largest Haitian diaspora in the country. I have one of the largest Jewish communities.
You sound like you're from Miami.
No, exactly. Well, there's obviously a lot of similarities and a lot of New Yorkers moving south. But, it's a district that, in many respects is reflective of the country. 50% of households in my district have a cop, a firefighter, a veteran living in the household.
Wow.
And 50% of adults have a college degree or higher. So it's affluent and educated, yet blue collar, working class. It's a great mix and microcosm of the country. And it's the community that I've lived in my whole life. And so, understanding the district, understanding the people matters. And I went into every single community, including communities that didn't vote for me, don't like me, don't support me. But I continue to engage and to talk about the issues that matter, from the affordability crisis to the migrant crisis to crime to obviously the international crises that we're dealing with. And so that matters. And people, whether they agree with you or not, they want to hear from you. They want to engage. They want to know that you are going to fight for them and going to represent them. And that's a big part of how you flip a seat, especially in a seat where you're, outnumbered in terms of partisan enrollment.
It's incredible when you look at these districts. I live in one, and all the experts will tell you, don't run because the polling is terrible for you. There's no chance. Doesn't matter who would run. for the seat you'd lose. And when you see people like you go into those races, do it the right way, I think also a luck, I'm hearing you saying it, a little bit of luck that you had is that the district is an educated district. So they're not just going to be told what to think and who to vote for.
Yeah, I mean, look, luck is always a part of it. Timing is part of it, and hard work. And, you not only have to show up, you have to know what the issues are that move voters. What are the issues that cut across party line? What are the issues that are going to allow you to build a coalition and get to 50+1? Because at the end of the day, there's no Pyrrhic victories in politics. You either win or you don't. And if you don't have the ability to impact policy. And part of this is also raising the money. I raised $1.6 million in 5.5 months in 2022, which was enough to at least get my message out there. And then there was overhead coverage from the outside groups. This time around, I'm already have raised over $6 million. So we're doing what we need to do on the money front. On top of that, I am very accessible and engaged with the press. I go on Fox, I go on CNN, and I go on MSNBC. I talk to every reporter, not to hear myself talk, but because fundamentally, if you want to engage voters, you have to reach them where they are. And to me, it's important to have voices that are being heard on every network and focused on the substantive policy issues that matter to voters. And that's one of the things that has helped me tremendously in a district like this. So, look, are these districts easy to flip? No, not at all. But if you do it right, if you engage constituents and you raise the money and you get your message out there and you're hitting the issues that matter to voters, you can win.
Yeah, it's incredible. And look, you mentioned something that I always talk about, which is that one of the most divisive factors in our country is the fact that people don't operate from the same set of information. And there's only one set of facts, but people get different sets of information or misinformation, disinformation, all the terms that people love throwing around. And the only way to break through that is to go speak on the other networks, to go debate, to get your hands dirty a little bit on the other side, even if you're going to get punched in the mouth sometimes by a reporter, so be it, because people can see it. And you see like J.D. Vance does that a lot. He does it well. He doesn't get heated. He listens to the question and he responds. And then people, actually, I hear it from other people, like, wow, that was a real thoughtful response. Right. So you can kind of break through. But let's talk about, you raise all this money. And I think there's two reasons. One, because it's an important seat and you help flip the House and no one knows what's going to happen this election. Obviously, the top of the ticket's going to affect the rest. We call it coattails or down ballot. But another big part of it is because you've done a lot. Most freshman members of Congress don't do anything. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because it's hard. It's hard to get on the right committees. It's hard to get anyone to listen to you. You're kind of in the machine. But you've done a lot. So why don't you talk about sort of your biggest accomplishments, and we'll kind of break down how you've done them and how you hit the ground running with it.
Well, I'll say, obviously a lot of times freshman members have kind of stayed under the radar and kind of been told, sit in the back, be quiet, listen. I think we have a great freshman class of members that are serious, that are substantive, that want to be engaged on policy. I've been fortunate to serve on financial services and foreign affairs, two substantive policy committees focused on issues that matter to the broader public. And I've been able to pass almost a dozen bills through the House, 4 of which have already been signed into law, which is significant, especially for a freshman member of Congress. And co-sponsored almost 1,200 bills, introduced over 60. We're doing the work legislatively. And obviously on the issue of Israel and combating anti-Semitism, I've been very aggressive from the start, long before October 7th and the terrorist attack and the aftermath of that, starting with the special envoy for the Abraham Accords, the SHIP Act, the IGO Anti-Boycott Act, the Iran-China Energy Sanctions Act, focusing in on legislation that goes after Iran, goes after UNRWA and the United Nations, focusing on legislation that combats anti-Semitism, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which we were able to pass through the House 320 to 91. Chuck Schumer sitting on that bill, refusing to put it on the Senate floor, despite the fact that it'll have 75, 80 senators voting in support of it, all because he doesn't want to divide the Democrat Senate. Meanwhile, you see the anti-Semitism running rampant on these college campuses. It's outrageous. But we're getting big things done because, number one, I'm aggressive legislatively. Number two, I'm willing to work across the aisle. All of my bills have had broad bipartisan support, over 2/3 of the House voting in favor of them. And that's because I understand if you want to get big things done, you have to be focused on building consensus writ large.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've really been in the forefront on the anti-Semitism issue. What is it that drove you to that issue to really take it by the horns? Because really, if you look at almost any anti-Semitism effort that the House has dealt with, not always passed, you've been part of it, either leading it or co-sponsoring it, like you're saying.
Well, look, I'm Irish Italian Catholic, and growing up in New York, representing a district that has one of the largest Jewish communities in the country, I've seen it. I understand, anti-Semitism and the very real impact it has on communities, and the need to forcefully and loudly combat it. I think as a Catholic, it's important to be a voice, really in loud opposition to anti-Semitism. We've seen what has happened with the Holocaust when people are silent. And that can never happen again. And so when you see what happened on October 7th, when you see what's happening on these college campuses, it's critically important to speak loudly and clearly that we will not tolerate this, and to legislatively address it in a meaningful way. And that's why the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act is so critical, because it clearly defines what anti-Semitism is, and it forces the Department of Education to enforce it for the purpose of Title VI violations of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and hold these institutions accountable, including institutions like Columbia, MIT, UPenn, where we saw just rampant anti-Semitism in the spring, and now seeing it percolate again.
Yeah, sometimes people in the summer were saying, "Oh, it's over." We're like not paying attention that the kids aren't in school on the.
Sadly, I suspected this would percolate again in the fall when they return to campuses. Obviously, I think the schools have made a little bit of progress in terms of trying to enforce some of the rules, but the reality is this is deeply rooted in academia. This has been going on long before October 7th. The anti-Semitism, the BDS movement that is rooted in anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, that is what has been happening on these college campuses. So this requires a real effort on the part of Congress, on the part of the administration, to combat this.
So I know you come from local government also originally. So do I. I served as mayor for 6 years. I did the first anti-BDS city ordinance and the first anti-Semitism definition ordinance in the country. So it was pushing these issues for a long time. The federal government was always slow. Actually, DeSantis, now governor, then congressman, and I used to work together on it. But knowing that the federal government was going to take a long time to come around, Title VI things, I filed suit against UC Berkeley Law School for their actions, and everything's just sitting with the Department of Education. They're not going to. The Biden's Department of Education is not going to.
They're not going to enforce it.
They're not going to do it. But I do want to give a shout out to the Catholic community. I'll tell you why. So Miami is full of Catholics. More Cuban Catholics, but Catholics nonetheless, not Irish Catholics. The Catholic community has been so strong with the Jewish community. I don't like the word allies. It's fine to use it, but they really are together, because if you look at these movements on college campuses, I know you were at Columbia, you went to see it yourself. It's not just anti-Israel at all. It's anti-American, but it's more than anti-American. And this is something that bleeds over into the Democrat Party. Used to be the extreme left of the Democrat Party, but really now it's getting into the mainstream, where it's an attack on religion. It's an attack on family values. It's an attack on traditions. And you're seeing the religious communities really come together. So if I showed you, I put my phone over there, a message I got from a friend who's Catholic, a Cuban woman, yesterday, about everything that's happening and how we have to push back together. It's not just messages. There's leaders, there's elected officials. How do you see this bleeding into what your discussions are in Congress?
Well, I think this is an important point. What we're seeing on these college campuses, what we're seeing across the country, is not just a hatred of Jews or anti-Semitism. It's a hatred of America. It's a hatred of Israel. It's a hatred of the Judeo-Christian values that are at the foundation of our country, and a hatred of capitalism, a hatred of Western society, and that's something that we have to combat. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is understanding what is behind some of these movements that we're seeing. And so, this view of the oppressed versus the oppressed versus the oppressor, and this view that America and Israel are the oppressor. And so that's something that I think we have to combat. We have to push back on. And I think you're seeing, yes, Catholics, Christians, Jews uniting, to push back against this, because it goes at the heart of who we are as a country, about Western civilization and society. And I think that's something that we have to be, concerned about and recognize what we're seeing.
Yeah, and just to add to that, one other community that's not on the press, but that is really, there's a group in that community that's really pushing back against this anti-Americanism, anti-Israel, anti-freedom, anti-religion. There's a lot in the Black community. So I did a show on PBS that'll be aired next month with Dr. Benjamin Chavis.
Yeah.
I think he was the head of the NAACP previously, and sort of the old traditional Black civil rights guys. They are not buying into this new wokeness, this new anti-racism, anti-racist ideology, which is what drives the DEI, which is by its very nature racist. And they're pushing back. So, I mean, I think there's a groundswell. I just want to talk about one more thing before you tell me about your race, because it's a really interesting race that I want to hear about. Tell me about, you're involved in all of these bills, all these discussions in Congress. It's easy to go after the Democrats. We know what they're doing. We know the squad. We know how the squad. It's now Squad Plus, 20 something that all sign on these things together. But in our own house, in the Republican side, there seems to be a growing kind of pushback, a little bit of isolationism, a little bit of, I don't know, I don't even know what label to put on it, but really nonsense. But it does seem like it's growing. You see it a lot in the podcast space.
Yeah.
Read the comments of this podcast. It'll be full of people with that nonsensical view. Tell me a little bit about that and how we can overcome it as a party.
I think obviously there's definitely a strain of isolationism in the Republican Party, and there always has been. I think obviously under the Biden-Harris administration in particular, it has grown, in part because, frankly, their handling of foreign policy has been so disastrous, from the withdrawal in Afghanistan to the Russian invasion of Ukraine to the terrorist attack on Israel, the threats from Iran, and obviously the aggression from China in the Indo-Pacific, and the failure to really connect all three and understand the challenge, and to have an effective plan to combat it. And I think, if you look back to the Trump administration, President Trump had China on its heels. He had Iran broke. Russia was not acting in the manner that they are under Obama and under Biden, invading Ukraine, trying to seize more territory, trying to reconstitute Eastern Europe as part of the former Soviet Union. We need to recognize, obviously, the threats that are posed by Russia, by China, by Iran, and how we effectively combat that. I agree, we have significant domestic challenges that we have to focus our energy and our attention and our resources on. But America cannot shirk its responsibilities as leader of the free world. Because if it does, and if we do retreat, you will see a new world order that'll be run by China, Russia, and Iran. And that will not be to our benefit economically. It will not allow us to take care of all the domestic challenges that we have to if our economy starts to collapse, because America is no longer the gold standard around the globe. And so that's something that we have to recognize. It is a balance, but you have to understand the threats that you're dealing with.
Okay, so before we close, tell me about your race. You got Mondaire Jones, the former congressman, right, of the same district.
Yeah.
They redistricted you guys. They reshuffled. See how they can get you out, because you've been so effective.
Yeah.
Tell me how the race looks.
I feel very good. We're working hard. From an official standpoint, we've done a lot of work. Closed over 4,000 constituent cases. I've done 8 town halls. Nearly 36 mobile office hours, traversing every community in the district. obviously engaging in the press, getting our message out there, raising money. My opponent was the third most progressive member of Congress. He voted with the squad 98, 99% of the time. He was a rubber stamp for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, never once pushing back against their agenda. And when you look at, his policy views, he supports defunding the police. He supports cashless bail. He supports the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, open borders, called ICE agents terrorists. Believes that policing is a form of white supremacy. This is someone who is far outside the mainstream, is trying now to recast himself as a pragmatic progressive, whatever the hell that means. But the reality is that he is someone who is far to the left, has an extreme voting record, and really, as a member of Congress for one term, did nothing to help the district. He passed one bill to rename a post office, which, while a great honor for the individual that it was renamed after, does nothing to help the community. And the reality is that he shut his office down months before his term expired. He ran away from the district and went and ran in New York City for Congress after redistricting, said that he never felt more at home than he does in New York City, which speaks volumes to his commitment to the Hudson Valley. So from my standpoint, there is a clear choice between the two of us, and I feel like we're in a very good position. But if people want to help us get across the finish line, they can text Mike to 85007. That's Mike to 85007. Or visit lawlerforcongress.com.
I'm smiling. I don't know how you score the 007, but that's politics at its best. So Representative Mike Lawler, Congressman, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Good luck
Dave.
for everything, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Boom.